Have you ever felt that, despite growing older, certain people around you, or even yourself, seem stuck in the same emotional cycles? Why do some women, even as adults, keep repeating patterns of dependency, insecurity, and romantic idealism? Does emotional maturity truly develop naturally, or is there something deeper preventing this growth? Carl Jung believed that psychological maturity is not just a matter of time, but an active process of individuation. In other words, a journey that requires courage to confront fears, let go of illusions, and integrate all aspects of one's psyche. For Jung, immaturity is not merely a conscious choice, but a reflection of unconscious patterns formed in childhood, reinforced by society, and maintained by an internal resistance to growth. From an early age, women are encouraged to be emotionally mature, to care for others, to understand, to sacrifice their own needs for the sake of those around them. But what happens when this maturity is just a role imposed from the outside rather than something that truly develops from within? The result can be an emotionally fragile life filled with insecurity and dependence on external validation. In this video, we will dive deep into the psychology of female immaturity, using Carl Jung's ideas to understand why some women remain trapped in this cycle and how they can break free from it. We'll discuss the Puella Aeterna, the eternal girl, explore how trauma and culture reinforce this behavior, and finally, uncover the paths to true psychological maturity. If you've ever wondered why some people never seem to truly grow up, or if you want to make sure you're not trapped in limiting patterns yourself, then stay with me until the end. Many people believe that maturity comes automatically with age. However, Carl Jung teaches us that biological growth does not mean psychological maturity. True maturity is not just a matter of time, but a process of self-discovery, acceptance, and internal transformation. Some women reach adulthood still trapped in childish emotional patterns, repeating cycles of dependency, insecurity, and romantic idealism. They may have jobs, relationships, and responsibilities, but on a deeper level, they still feel they don't have full autonomy over their own lives. Something inside them remains untouched, immature, waiting for an external factor, a partner, an opportunity, a magical moment, to bring them the sense of completeness that never comes. Jung identified this phenomenon in the figure of the Puella Aeterna, or the eternal girl. Like her male counterpart, the Puella Aeternus, this woman lives in a prolonged state of psychological adolescence, avoiding the necessary challenges to achieve true individuation. She may be charming, charismatic, and even seem to have everything under control, but deep down, her identity is fragmented, built on illusions and unconscious fears. This immaturity manifests in various ways: in relationships where she seeks a savior to rescue her, in a constant resistance to responsibility, or in the need to maintain an image of eternal youth as a shield against the reality of adulthood. Society often reinforces this immaturity. From a young age, women are encouraged to shape themselves to be desirable, agreeable, and emotionally accessible. They are taught to prioritize others' opinions, to be good girls, and to measure their worth through external validation. But what happens when a woman never learns to build her own identity, independent of these influences? The result is an endless search for validation, difficulty making decisions on her own, and a constant fear of making mistakes, because any failure might mean losing social acceptance. Jung reminds us that psychological maturity requires confronting our own shadow self, the parts of us we repress, avoid, or fear facing. For some women, this hidden side includes their own strength, independence, and ability to face challenges without needing anyone's approval. By denying this part of themselves, they remain trapped in a cycle of insecurity, dependency, and childish idealism. This immaturity is not always obvious. Many women who appear confident and successful may, in reality, be living under the shadow of the Puella Aeterna, hiding their insecurities behind a carefully constructed persona. They may seem determined but avoid real commitments. They may be charming but fear solitude. They may desire freedom but unconsciously seek someone to take care of them. The big question is, what keeps these women trapped in this state? Why do some seem to mature emotionally while others remain stagnant? The answer lies in a complex set of factors, including childhood experiences, cultural influences, and deeply rooted fears. To understand why psychological immaturity persists, we need to look deeper into the roots of this phenomenon. Carl Jung believed that the first step toward true maturity is awareness, recognizing the unconscious patterns that control us and beginning to question them. Psychological immaturity doesn't appear out of nowhere. It is built over time, rooted in childhood experiences, reinforced by unresolved traumas, and perpetuated by a culture that dictates what it means to be a woman. Carl Jung teaches us that much of who we are is shaped by unconscious factors, those we don't always recognize but that guide our choices, fears, and even our resistance to growth. For many women, the obstacles to maturity begin long before adulthood. One of the main factors leading to female immaturity is overprotection in childhood. Many girls are raised in environments where they are constantly shielded from difficulties, the consequences of their actions, and the natural responsibilities of life. Parents who want to spare their daughters from suffering often create an environment where they don't need to develop autonomy. This may seem like an act of love, but in reality, it becomes a silent trap. When everything is solved for them, when every obstacle is removed before they even face it, they never learn to trust their own ability to solve problems. The result is an adult woman who feels insecure when faced with challenges and instead of seeking solutions on her own, waits for someone else to take responsibility. Another key factor in understanding female immaturity is the impact of emotional trauma. When a woman experiences loss, rejection, or emotional abuse in childhood, her psyche may develop defense mechanisms to avoid reliving that pain. This can manifest in various ways. Some become extremely dependent on others, seeking in relationships the security they didn't feel as children. Others develop an intense fear of responsibility because they associate any form of autonomy with suffering or abandonment. These unresolved wounds can cause a woman to remain emotionally stagnant, repeating destructive patterns and refusing to step out of her comfort zone. Culture also plays a fundamental role in this cycle. From an early age, many women are taught that their worth is tied to how they are perceived by others. The pressure to be beautiful, sweet, and desirable is immense, while qualities like strength, ambition, and independence are often discouraged or labeled as inappropriate. This creates a paradox. Women are encouraged to appear mature, but not to truly be mature. In movies, books, and social media, the image of the ideal woman often reinforces the idea of the Puella Aeterna, the eternal girl, lighthearted, fun, carefree, always finding a man willing to protect and take care of her. This glorification of eternal youth also reinforces the fear of aging. In a society obsessed with youth and beauty, many women feel that growing older means losing their value. The fear of aging is not just an aesthetic concern, it reflects a deeper fear of losing social acceptance. This can lead some women to remain trapped in a state of immaturity, avoiding responsibilities, running from commitments, and maintaining a childlike persona to stay socially relevant. Jung believed that true maturity only happens when a person is willing to confront their own shadows. That is, the parts of themselves that have been repressed or ignored. For many women, their shadow holds their strength, their independence, and their ability to make decisions without seeking anyone's approval. But if these qualities have been taught to be seen as dangerous or undesirable, they remain buried in the unconscious, preventing true growth. What does all this mean? It means that female psychological immaturity is not a personal flaw or a weakness of character. It results from a combination of childhood experiences, emotional traumas, and cultural influences that together create an environment where women do not feel completely free to mature. However, recognizing these roots is already the first step toward breaking this cycle. Psychological immaturity does not manifest itself in an obvious way. Many women who fit this pattern may appear confident, sociable, and even successful in certain areas of life. However, on a deeper level, there is always a lingering sense of stagnation, insecurity, and lack of control over their own existence. Carl Jung described the Puella Aeterna, the eternal girl, as someone trapped in a prolonged state of psychological adolescence. This immaturity can be subtle, but its effects run deep, impacting relationships, careers, and even self-esteem. One of the most common symptoms of female psychological immaturity is romantic idealism. Many women who have not developed a solid emotional identity place unrealistic expectations on love, hoping to be saved by it. The partner becomes a symbol of security, protection, and purpose, as if life only has meaning within the context of a relationship. This romantic idealism can lead them to constantly seek the perfect man, ignoring red flags, repeating destructive patterns, and sacrificing their own growth to maintain the illusion of a fairy tale. These women may feel incomplete when single and, once in a relationship, tend to put their partner on a pedestal, expecting him to fill all their internal voids. This often results in frustration, emotional dependence, and cycles of dysfunctional relationships. Another clear sign of female psychological immaturity is the difficulty in taking responsibility. An emotionally immature woman may resist structure, routine, and the demands of adult life. Instead of taking control of her own existence, she remains in a passive state, waiting for someone or something to solve her problems. This avoidance of responsibility can manifest in various ways: chronic procrastination, inability to make important decisions, difficulty committing to long-term projects, and a tendency to blame external factors for her lack of progress. Just as Peter Pan never wanted to grow up, the Puella Aeterna sees adulthood as dull, limiting, and burdensome, preferring to take refuge in distractions, unstable relationships, or fantasies of an idealized future. Another defining symptom is the fear of aging. Unlike men, who are often encouraged to mature and gain power, women are taught to value youth as their greatest asset. The immature woman not only fears the passage of time, but also believes she will lose her worth if she is no longer young, attractive, or desirable. This fear can drive her into an obsessive pursuit of physical perfection, denial of time, and even rejection of deeper aspects of maturity, such as self-awareness and acceptance of her own journey. Many women trapped in this cycle avoid self-reflection and instead seek external validation, whether through social media, superficial relationships, or excessive consumption. Immaturity also impacts professional life. The Puella Aeterna often feels lost in her career, jumping from one job to another without a true sense of purpose. She may struggle to commit to a professional path, preferring to stay in her comfort zone or pursuing only what brings pleasure without delving into more complex challenges. Many times she feels out of place in the professional world, not because she lacks talent or ability, but because she fears the weight of responsibilities and the need to establish herself as a mature and independent woman. Jung teaches us that this state of immaturity persists as long as we avoid confronting our shadows. In the case of the immature woman, her shadow holds her strength, her autonomy, and her ability to face life without constantly seeking the approval of others. However, as long as these qualities remain repressed, she will continue to live in a psychological state of dependence and insecurity. True maturity doesn't happen by chance. For Carl Jung, psychological growth means embarking on the process of individuation, a path of deep self-knowledge in which a person integrates all parts of themselves, including those that have been repressed, denied, or feared throughout life. This process requires courage because it involves confronting the shadows of one's unconscious and letting go of illusions that, no matter how comforting they may seem, keep a woman trapped in a state of emotional dependence and psychological immaturity. The first step to breaking free from this cycle is self-awareness. Many immature women don't realize they are stuck in destructive patterns until something, a crisis, a breakup, or a moment of extreme frustration, makes them feel lost. However, this pain can be the necessary trigger to awaken the desire for change. Jung believed that the shadow, the part of ourselves we avoid seeing, contains the key to transformation. In the case of the Puella Aeterna, this shadow may include traits such as ambition, strength, autonomy, and a repressed desire to be more than just likable or desirable. A woman who seeks to mature must recognize these hidden parts within herself and integrate them into her identity, without fearing external judgment. Another essential step is breaking free from the relentless search for external validation. Many immature women base their self-worth on the approval of others, whether through their appearance, social status, or romantic relationships. They become dependent on compliments, attention, and the feeling of being wanted, but true maturity requires replacing this need for approval with an internal sense of self-worth. This means making decisions based on what truly matters, rather than on what others expect. A mature woman is not concerned with appearing perfect or pleasing everyone. She knows who she is and is comfortable with herself, even if that means disappointing some people along the way. Self-responsibility is also a fundamental piece of this process. Jung said that psychological maturity only happens when we take control of our own lives instead of waiting for someone to rescue us. For a woman who has always been emotionally dependent on partners, family, or friends to make decisions and give her life direction, this can be terrifying. But true freedom comes from understanding that no one is coming to save her, and this is something liberating, not frightening. Another crucial aspect of psychological growth is the integration of masculine and feminine energies within the psyche. Jung believed that we all carry both the anima, feminine energy associated with intuition, sensitivity, and emotional connection, and the animus, masculine energy linked to strength, action, and rationality. Many immature women reject their inner masculine side, which makes them passive in life, always waiting for someone else to take the lead for them. To mature, one must balance these forces, accepting that intuition and sensitivity can coexist with determination and independence. The last and perhaps most transformative step toward maturity is the willingness to face the fear of growth. Immaturity often lingers because growing up means letting go of certain comforts and illusions. For many women, this can mean leaving behind relationships that no longer make sense, taking risks in their careers, confronting deep fears of rejection, or even accepting that life will not be a fairy tale. This process can be painful, but it is necessary for a woman to break free from stagnation and step into a state of true autonomy. In the end, maturity is not synonymous with perfection. It is a continuous process of learning, adapting, and growing. But one thing is certain, no woman who truly commits to her own individuation will ever live as she did before. The journey to maturity is a one-way path, and that is something beautiful. Female psychological maturity is not just a matter of age or meeting social expectations. As we've explored throughout this video, it's a deep internal process that requires self-awareness, courage, and a willingness to let go of patterns that no longer serve us. Carl Jung teaches us that to grow means to individuate, to become a whole, autonomous person, free from the shackles imposed by society, culture, and even our own psyche. A woman who remains in psychological immaturity often doesn't realize she's trapped. Her desire to please, her relentless search for a love that will complete her, and her fear of loneliness keep her stuck in a cycle of dependence and stagnation. But the good news is that no one is doomed to stay in this state forever. Transformation is possible, and it all starts with a simple act, looking in the mirror without illusions and asking the hardest question of all, who am I beyond the expectations that have been placed upon me? If you've made it this far, chances are this topic resonated with you in some way. Maybe you recognized your own patterns, saw reflections of people you know, or simply felt an inner call to explore this journey further. If that's the case, know that this is already a sign of growth. Awareness is the first step toward any real change. I want to thank you for watching this video all the way through. Talking about psychological immaturity can be uncomfortable because it forces us to face truths we'd rather ignore, but it's precisely in that discomfort that the key to growth lies. I hope this content has sparked some reflections in you and maybe even planted the seed for a genuine transformation. Now, tell me in the comments, have you ever noticed these patterns of immaturity in yourself or someone close to you? What was the moment in your life when you truly felt like you started to mature? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. And of course, if you enjoyed the video, like, share, and subscribe to the channel. We always bring thought-provoking reflections that challenge the mind and soul. Oh, and check out the recommended videos popping up on the screen right now. There's one in there that I'm sure will make you rethink everything you thought you knew about self-awareness. See you in the next video. Take care.